Brilliant.
Welcome everybody to second Friday Art Talk with, I'm your host, Victor, and I would like to especially thank Art Push for putting this together because it's carried us through a pandemic. And today we have three fabulous artists who are going to share their work and their lives with us today. And it's going to be a great show as usual, because here we focus on the human being behind the art, as well as the art itself. So it's a total experience you'll get today. And I will introduce my guests shortly. But firstly, we have to pay our dues and give respect to those who've shown up and made this possible. Firstly, Alameda Municipal Power stepped in and sponsored this event. And also Flax Art, who stepped in during a pandemic. When everybody was going through a hard time, they chose to look to the artists and say, we will do what we can to support artists. So Flax Art and Design, we truly are grateful for the donation of the gift cards that came in at a hard time. And for that, we'll always be thankful. So moving on, more information about tonight's panelists will be available on FridayArtWalk.com. You'll find previous talks there also. The audience is muted during this panel discussion, but we will be taking questions in the chat or comments in the chat. And 15 minutes before we're done, we're going to open it up and people can ask the artists questions directly. So please prep your questions if you have any. And artists also, you're welcome to cross-examine each other, not cross-examine, but ask each other questions, as it were. All right, so that being said, we're going to introduce our panelists, and they are Philm, spelled P-H-I-L-M. He also goes by Phil, and Rainbow Bear, in quotes. That's brilliant, I love that. And we also have Chris, also goes by Tuscan, is that right?
No, it's Granillo, Chris Granillo.
Okay, I do have Tuscan in quotes, so we'll have to see what that's about as we get into the talk. Okay. All right, and Mikey, Elliott, those will be our three panelists. So without further ado, we're gonna get straight into it and get to know our artists and hear about their work. I would like to ask my technicians to be on guard. We would love to see the artwork up when the artist is speaking about the piece. And thanks so much for being so patient with us, our wonderful technicians, Art Push. All right, so Chris, we'll start with you. Firstly, welcome to the panel, and thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us and share your work. This is going to be a great evening, I can tell already. And to begin, could you tell us a bit about yourself and where you're from?
So yeah, I'm from the California desert, which is, Joshua Tree in the Coachella area. That's where I was born. And then for the last 20 years, I've been out here in Oakland, painting murals and, working in the community and doing art shows.
Awesome. Great. We'll get back to you about that, and I'm looking forward to hear more about your community involvement and how that was impacted by the pandemic. So food for thought. All right, thanks so much, Chris. Moving on to Phil. Welcome to the panel, and do tell us a bit about yourself and where you're from.
Thanks for having me. I'm from the Bay Area. I'm from Oakland and Alameda now, and I'm a filmmaker. I do photography, and I try to paint as much as I can.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. Yeah. Appreciate that. Mikey, you're on.
I'm Mikey. I'm a painter, photographer, printer, mostly painting, but lately I've been doing digital sales too. So working, going into NFTs and crypto stuff, not getting in too deep because I'm not rich, so I don't have money to put into these things, but there's ways to get artist value now. So I'm really excited about the.
All right. I must preempt that Mikey is not doing too good today, so if you will bear with us there. But thank you, Mikey, for taking the time, even though you're not feeling too good. We appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
Where are you from? Before I let you go, let you
Oh, yeah,
rest a
yeah.
little bit.
Based in Oakland, former curator of the Red Door Gallery in Alameda. You'd see that all in my bio.
All right, cool. If you want to know more about Mikey and their film and Chris, you can find more details on FridayArtWalk.com. And also you can actually reach them through that portal because it will lead you to their website and you can get in touch with their artists. All right, thanks so much for sharing. All right, so we go back to Chris. What inspired the piece in the book?
This piece here, that's the toucan, and that was inspired by the restaurant Sobre Mesa, which is where it's located on. And this was a collaborated piece with a few artists from the community in Oakland, and it was done on Franklin Street and about 17th. And this is the boarded up business that from all the way from, I don't know if you're familiar with the Sobre Mesa restaurant. They have a whole storefront with it's all painted, a whole block of murals. But this is one of the pieces that's in the back, and they serve tropical food, tropical Caribbean food. So we wanted to do a tropical theme on this piece.
Awesome. Now, one thing struck me when you spoke about it is that it's on the boarded storefront. How do you feel about that? Stepping in and beautifying a storefront during such a difficult time. How was that? How was that interaction?
That was, to me, it was almost like inspiring to see all the artists come together and work on the pieces around the neighborhood. Because this is just one piece, but there are about 7 or 8 on this block. It was very inspiring to see the community of artists work together. And actually, we worked for donations on most of these pieces because I knew the restaurants were kind of shut down at the time. So we wanted to kind of bring some color to the neighborhood. And so we worked on about 30 panels in downtown Oakland. And that's downtown all the way from Lakeshore to West Oakland. So there was a lot of artists involved with these panels, and it was nice to see the community come out, and support.
Wow. Yeah, that's just phenomenal. And it just came out of a love for the community and a need to beautify it. That was the driving force, right?
Yes, it was. And I think this one's still there. So, and they do live music. So last time I went to the restaurant, they had live jazz in front of it. So now it acts as a background.
Wow, that's phenomenal. So can you talk to me about how the surface, working on a surface that's possibly temporary in terms of its placement, and also during this really challenging time, does this piece then mean more to you? What does it mean to you now that we've kind of moved on?
I think to me, it was always kind of a transition period of kind of like, we don't know where we're at, but I do kind of have that emotion toward a lot of my work because I do come from a street art and graffiti background. So that the stuff we paint sometimes is not permanent. A lot of the work we do is on the street, and you don't know what's going to happen to it. So dealing with the pandemic and the amount of spaces that were available, it actually brought out a lot of artists from the studio to the streets, like an outdoor gallery. And it's basically, if you walk downtown, it's like a museum right now. So it was one of those things that inspired everybody to come out and express themselves, all from the Black Lives Matter to the stuff that we were doing during the pandemic with the helping the businesses, doing the political marches. Like all that is tied into this movement that has been kind of this renaissance, you know, that has brought out everybody and work together.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Chris. We'll come back again and talk more in depth about how the pandemic impacted you as an individual. But thanks for that generosity, just giving out to the community so freely.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for
really appreciate it. Thanks, Chris. Moving on to Phil.
I had a bunch of canvases that I needed to use up. I have a couple of young kids, so I don't have a lot of time to paint. So there are a couple times where I got into, you know, like a week where I was like, okay, every night I'm going to go and paint something, and so I like to give myself deadlines, and I try to move as quickly as possible. And I was sort of on this this sort of theme of you know, trying to find myself in art, because I'm still fairly new to creating art and sharing it with people. I've been a filmmaker for a long time on the lighting side, as a technician, and then slowly working into writing and directing. But those sorts of projects always take, you know, all sorts of people to collaborate. So I've been doing a lot of photography and painting because I don't have to rely on anyone for it. So I got on this kick of like, okay, how do I define myself? And one of the things that defines me is I'm from California. And I started focusing on the California flag and doing a bunch of different renditions of it, just in all sort of different ways. And I just had this idea of let me try to layer it and do something. I'm sure, because it was 2018. I'm sure that there was something in the news that, you know, Trump or another conservative said something that I'm sure was probably homophobic, and I wanted to show my solidarity with the LGBTQ community, and was like, you know what, like, we're California, we're leading the way in building something that's progressive. So I want, and I'm proud of that. And so that was sort of where this came from. And I do a lot of drip painting, using spray paint and other sort of mediums, just because it's, you know, I like the texture and process of it. I can start it, and then I can go do something else, and then I can come back to it fairly easily. So that's where this came from.
Awesome, beautiful. Could you speak more on the clouds in the background, the atmosphere rather? Is there something behind that?
There sort of, yeah. I mean, I just started going with layers and layers and layers, and then I think on this one, I'm sure that I had painted something else, and then I think I painted over it again in black, and then yeah, and you can see some of like where I taped it off to, you know, it's all imperfect, but that was the thing that I told myself when I first started painting and started making art. It was that, you know, I'm not trained as a fine artist or anything like that. And so I sort of accepted that all of my paintings they're never going to be perfect. They're never going to be, you know, completely finished. So I'm just gonna embrace that, and you know, and just like, you know what, it's good enough. It's, for me, it really turned into this sort of like emotional movement of trying to create something, you know, trying to see it in my head, put it on the canvas or on the paper as quickly as I can, and then you know, hope that it falls out right, and then move on to the next one.
Beautiful. If you hadn't mentioned that you hadn't trained in art, yeah, it wouldn't have actually occurred to me, because what strikes me about the piece is the emotional impact it has. You have this this bear in the center of the canvas, but surrounded by this. For me personally, it's I know it's different for everybody, but this ambiguity, the atmosphere is not really friendly, but the colors are so bold. So there's this boldness coming out of it, but at the same time, it's enclosed within this ambiguous space. Wow. Thanks so much for sharing. That's why I love these panels, because each artist really takes you into this other dimension where you realize like, oh yeah, it's okay to do art. it's okay to do art. It's okay to just do what you love to do. And I appreciate you sharing that and speaking so about the piece. All right. We'll come back to you and talk about the pandemic or whatever else you want to talk about, because I realize we structured the questions. I just want to let the artists know that this is your show. So if I ask you the question about the quarantine and you want to talk about something else, feel free. All right. Moving on to Mikey. What inspired the piece in the book?
Yeah, but all my stuff is abstract process paintings. So it's really just in the moment. Yeah. Yeah, that was actually painted. Yeah, I think it's a studio work, but I painted several layers, and then thought it was finished, hung it on the wall for maybe a couple weeks or something, and then put another couple layers on top. So it looks a little bit different now, but
so the work keeps changing. Your process is ever evolving the piece.
Of course. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Could you tell us more about the influence of the colors? What's the inspiration behind the colors you use?
Yeah, it's just, the vibrant energy of the blue bouncing off the orange, on your eye. Yeah, it just, yeah, especially when you add a little white to it, just so much depth. This also works with 3D glasses, by the way. So the original piece, and digital, but yeah, been working on this style for 20 years. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Is there any artist in your background that really inspires you to do the work you do, and what impact do you intend to have, if any, on the audience?
James Turrell is one of my huge influences. He's fantastic artist of light, I guess. Or yeah. If you've been to MoMA, you've probably seen his work. So just color fields, and it's more of an experience. Vibrant.
All right. I would love to come back to talk to you more about how you viewed your work during the quarantine and also the pandemic. So we'll get back to that, Mikey. Thanks so much for sharing. And sorry, I feel really bad to have dragged you into this when you're not feeling well, but we appreciate you being
sorry.
Here. All right.
I'm healthy, but yeah. Healthy, but yeah. Got a lot of heavy news this week. So yeah.
All right.
Some new gray hairs, I would say.
Well, we're getting there, aren't we?
All is good.
Just a couple of comments in the chat. I was thinking of volcanic eruption. That's from Christy. And it reminds me of lava and the ocean, but reversed. That's Nicole. I love the idea of the bear looking like he's teleporting to or away from the barren landscape. That's from David. Yeah, so thanks so much for the comments in the chat. I always love to see what we're thinking about. Cheryl writes, evoke sadness for the plight of the polar bear, literally melting into the environment.
Wow.
Wow. And then David writes, an interdimensional lava eruption rift. I love that. All right, so on to a bit of the heavier stuff before we open it up to our audience. And to the audience, thanks so much for being a part of this. We appreciate that. It's always nice to have people around us. Back to Chris, the quarantine and the whole pandemic, how did it impact you personally and your work?
I think with me, it like basically, it pushed me to come out more and do more out in the streets. The whole since the beginning of the pandemic was really busy, because once you start doing one panel, it would start into another one, it would start into another one. So it basically every week was working on a different panel, you know. So it wasn't, I think it was more of a time for me to paint alone on the street. And when people came back out, they were like, oh, how did all this work just end up here, you know? So it was cool to have that that time to reflect, to get, you know, kind of slow down a little bit from trying to be in a situation where you have to work every day, and you know, and I'm talking about not painting, more art, like just to pay the bills and stuff. So it kind of put you a little bit of pressure to you know, push yourself at the time when everything was shutting down to express yourself. So it was really interesting time, because I never thought we would see this in this generation, you know. But it was, for a lot of artists, I did see a lot of artists come out, and that was cool, you know.
Wow. Wow, that's impactful. My follow-up question would be, before I get into that, Nicole writes, the street panels and murals are just amazing. There is a push all across the nation for these. It is amazing. So you lit up the town basically with the murals. Now, the question I would like to follow up with is, for the younger audience who might watch this, how did it feel having something to go to when everything else was broken and not working?
Definitely it was comfort, you know, because you're in a familiar craft, and you're working, and you're busy, and you're out adding color to a lot of these boarded up buildings, you know. So it put a smile on people's faces, you know, even if people are doing a grocery run, or they're going to the store to get medicine, doing something, you know, they're gonna walk by the pieces and take a look and get a second look. And now that everybody's out, it's been really it went from like 0 to 100 to the amount of people that are like having response on these works out on the streets, you know. So it put a different point of view, like stepping out of the museum, stepping out of the galleries, and it's free, you know. So I think it made a powerful impact in the whole you know, US, all over the world, you know, what people are doing with these outdoor projects.
Wow, that's just totally amazing. And what strikes me is that you went out and funded it yourself, you know, to begin it. Yeah, that's totally phenomenal. Christy asked the question, do you have it all planned out? Did you have it all planned out before you started painting?
So I do start off with the sketch. So there is a sketch involved, an idea for placement, depending on if the panel is, you know, a certain size or a certain shape, or if there's windows involved. You could always plan out different designs on what the surface of the material you're going to paint on. So a lot of these did have the sketches. So that does help when you get to the wall. You're like, I don't know what I'm going to paint, you know, but it does give you an advanced kind of like timeline to work on the piece and add more layers and build on it, you know.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, Chris. And for those in the audience, please feel free to ask questions once we're done with this section. There are some questions in the panel. I think I'll address this before we move on. What kind of paint did you use? House paint?
So yes, so I did use a little bit of mixed media. There was house paint and spray paint. So with a lot of these pieces, they were with spray paint and brush, just because to cover the time, like, there was a lot of overlapping. So with spray paint, you can work a little bit faster. And it was yeah, so a lot of these this one here, the Toucan, was a mixed media. So the background is black paint, like house paint, and then some of it on the foreground, all the shading is Montana 94 cans, which is a bright color spray paint that could be controlled a little easier. The background is yellow, which is spray paint as well, and the shading is, some of it there is a little bit of house paint, and the highlights are spray paint there too.
Wow. Thanks so much for that, Chris. Really appreciate it. To close off the section, not to close it off, but to add to this part, the murals have really made a difference in terms of connecting people. Every time I pass one, I feel the sense of connection. Plus, they are so beautiful. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Beautiful. All right. Moving on to, thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. And thanks for what you did. It really made a difference. We'll move on to Phil. All right. So the pandemic and the quarantine, how did it impact your work?
I know a lot of people who got very creative, and I just unfortunately had like the opposite reaction. I felt like I didn't have time. Because I have two young kids, and they both obviously were pulled out of daycare, and the space that I have in my house to paint, we had to convert into an office for my wife so she could work from home. And I was just like exhausted. I don't think I shot a single roll of film. I didn't paint anything. I wasn't depressed or anything. I just was exhausted. So I was just not feeling creative at all. Which was kind of a bummer, because I of course had just finished putting together this really great, I had just gotten my little art space all set up perfectly. And then, my wife has to work from home. So like, okay, here, you take it. I'll figure it out. So that's what happened. But, and I had also given up, like, of course I decided to like give up sugar for the year. And then the pandemic happened. I was like, great, this is a terrible year to give up sugar. And so there were just all sorts of things happening that I was like, I gotta focus on my kids. I gotta, make sure that my wife is mentally okay to work from home and not be bothered by the kids. I felt like all of that sort of took precedent. But then, at the end of the year and at the beginning of this year, I was like, all right, okay, I took a year and wasn't creative. Now I'm just gonna really focus and try to paint, try to shoot. And I had a box of, it was like 50, almost 60 rolls of film that I had shot but weren't developed. So I was like, all right, so I developed all those. I'm now in the process of scanning all those. So I have been much more right, exactly. That airplane line. So I've been much more pushing myself to be much more creative, and I think that was the silver lining of all of it, is that this year I've really been trying to focus on I guess on myself and my art. A lot of the film work that I normally do and rely on for income, a lot of that, shut down. There is other work for people who do lighting, because now everyone needs things online and videos and stuff. So that's good that a lot of my colleagues can still work, and make a living doing that. But I think like a lot of my friends who work in film and movies, I think a lot of us sort of questioned, you know, like how much time we, how much we actually love doing it. And so the silver lining is that now I'm trying to focus more on my painting and my photography, because yeah, because last year was just it was just a bummer.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. That means so much to me, because it normalizes being okay with not engaging if you don't have the time or the space. That's okay. I say that because I'm always thinking of the younger artists, and you know, we live in a society of meritocracy where you have to do stuff, you have to keep doing stuff. So thanks for sharing that. You know, you were okay just stepping back.
Yeah.
But then also the richness of this discussion is that we also have Chris, who felt like he could now go out and do his thing. So it's so lovely to see that artists are not one person who reacts in the same way. People come with different different approaches to things. Chris gave to the community when the community was struggling. Everybody was struggling. And here comes somebody giving. And here you are, an artist giving to your family. Again, it really humanizes the artist and makes it okay to do what you feel you should do. Right. So thank you both for sharing that. That's really enlightening, and we appreciate what you do. All right, Mikey, on to you. The quarantine and the pandemic, how has it impacted you and your work?
Yeah, it's I used to curate a gallery. I don't so much anymore because I don't want anybody to get sick and die. It's
wow.
I don't know. I feel really bad. I've just been trying to expand it to digital markets, or smaller shows.
Wow. Are you open to people asking you questions about NFTs? I don't want to get into that.
Oh,
I
for
know
sure,
it might
for
be a
sure.
whole, but are you okay
For sure.
if people direct their questions to you offline?
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely. Yeah.
All right. So the pandemic did derail the curation of the gallery.
Mm-hmm. There's a thriving art community in the NFT space.
All right. So artists, if you have questions for each other, this will be the time.
I have a question for Chris. I'm so curious, like how do you find the spots that you want to paint? What's the process there?
So the process is, if you're working with a person, like the way I did it, I worked with a venue that I knew needed this work done. And as I approached them, they were like, you know what, you could paint. And I showed them the stuff that I was going to paint on there. So it's basically just communicating with the business owner. And from there, once you start doing one, it starts to get into 2 to 3 to 4, and it snowballs from there. So it's been going on for since the beginning of the pandemic. It's nonstop, So if you have somebody that needs some work done, you just kind of approach it, and then it's pretty basic. Just hit them up and just get your paint and go out there and see what they say. So, especially with abstract work, you could probably if you start painting on the street, people start seeing the color, and then they get inspired by it, and they're like, oh, I have a garage, or I have a place that you could paint, or I have a school with kids that you could be part of. So it just depends on what you're comfortable with,
Nice.
That's awesome.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing that, Chris. Appreciate it. People in the audience, please feel free to share your comments or questions. This is our time. We do have 19 minutes to go. While people prepare their questions, I would like to make some announcements. There will be an outdoor film screening of Romantic Chorus at Studio 23 Details will be on FridayArtWalk.com. So that's outdoor film screening at Studio 23. And we also have Art in Nature, which is a meetup group hosted by Sarah. Sarah, if you can just wave your hand. She's engaged with David at the moment. That's on Saturday, the 14th of August, tomorrow at 2:30. More details can also be found on FridayArtWalk.com. It's a fantastic group. I've heard amazing things about it. So if you feel like you need a community, this will be the place to go. Art in Nature, you can find it on Meetup also if you just search for Art in Nature. And Sarah is our host. Maybe you want to talk a bit more about that. East Bay Artist 2021 book is rolling right now. I must say I haven't submitted yet, but I will. The deadline is the 16th. So we've got 3 days before the deadline. And I would really urge you to submit an art piece, or if you have artist friends, this is the time, because I don't think we're going to see anything like this again, this period. And to capture it would be the way to go. Last year, we managed to capture it with a 2020 book, which is now a hot commodity. It's hard to come by, and it's special. So thanks for those who submitted, and thanks to Art Push once again. Thanks once again to Flax and Alameda Municipal Power for sponsoring this. We really appreciate you. We don't want to sound like parents just saying thank you. We really mean it. We appreciate it. And thanks to the artists and the audience who make this happen. So that's a bit of my public announcements. I will get back to that, but I would like to take some questions or comments from the audience now. Yes, Art Push.
Hey, thanks, Victor. So I have a couple things. One, I would like to really, I want to thank the three artists, panelists. It was really great. And I think it's really interesting that all of you guys deal with drips in some way.
Yeah.
Drip painting or spray painting. I know there's no drips in your piece, but I'm sure you deal with them, on the board and stuff, right? So I think it's pretty cool that all three artists happen to be. That's just some synchronicity that we found. And I was Phil. We're friends. We've talked before, and that piece in the book, the bear. Okay, it never connected with me that was to you, and that was your piece until today. And I want to tell you that the texture that you have got in that, there is something magical there.
Thank you.
Because it's hard to do good abstract. And getting textures like that, it's very easy to screw it up and make it bad. And you really, you made it. That is a beautiful, beautiful piece. So
that's cool.
And Mikey, I want to say that I love you, buddy, and I love your pieces, and I love your work, and I'm glad that you could participate. And Chris, I freaking love that toucan. I spent a lot of time down in the tropics, and that gives me good warm feelings. I think about
bringing the beach vibes out here.
The equator, it makes me want to lay down on the sand. So I like it. All right, so I just wanted to say say a few things to you guys, and I want to show you guys or show everybody here this preview for tomorrow's film.
It's a local director and 27 artists and animators participated in making it happen.
Nice.
For me, hey, if you ever, want to see someone else, that's, I respect that. That's totally fine. Humans aren't really suited to having one partner for life.
I was like, what is going on here? I've never seen this. Like, what do you call this relationship? It was like this new world to me. It was like, then I just started to really I wanted to understand one scientist and that's a question though. If we're in an open relationship.
Like in terms of sex, obviously having been raised Catholic, there was a lot of shame around just sex itself as being sexual being. And I think that coupled with living in America, which is this very weird culture where everything is hypersexualized, but everyone is also really prudish at the same time. People's sexuality is removed from who they are as a person and is not seen as an integrated part of who they are as a person.
So I just want, so that is a preview. That is a local filmmaker. And we are screening that tomorrow night outdoors at Studio 23 Gallery. You can come.
That so film is tomorrow, Studio 23. What time is that? I know it's in the evening, but
Yeah.
what time?
8 p.m.
8 p.m. Okay, thanks so much. Panelists, if you have announcements about projects going on or art-related stuff, you can say so. Sarah's got a hand up already. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I was just going to say that along with the film screenings, 3 Dot will be open for the first time in a year and a half. So we are going to have masks required if you come inside, and we'll limit the number of people inside, but our gallery will be open. And then in conjunction with the film screening, there will also be live music at the Red Door on Encinal. So it's going to be a nice outdoors, safe event where, you know, artists can actually artists and art lovers can finally get together and socialize again. So we're really looking forward to it. That being said, that was my plug for that. Mikey, you didn't really talk about how one of the key features of your work, which is really cool, is that it's 3D. Like the fact that your work is 3D is awesome. I bought a pair of socks for my socks are usually the lamest gifts ever, but for my brother's birthday, I bought him a pair of socks with Mikey's design on them and the little 3D glasses that came with it, and it was, I mean, he loves them. And people at the little brewery we are at where I gave it to him, they were all like, "Oh my gosh, what is that? That's so cool." So
Wow.
yeah, there they are.
Wes has them. Yeah.
I got Mikey socks right here.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
I was walking next to Mikey and he tripped, and I had white socks on, and he tripped and fell on my socks, and this is how they look now.
If you haven't seen Mikey's work, it's an experience. I would encourage you to take a look at his work when you
It's
get
so
the chance.
cool.
All right. Any other artist announcements?
Yeah, so I wanted to say an announcement. We have all the artists that participated during COVID on the panels in San Francisco and in Oakland, we're having an art show at the end of this month at 111 Mina SF. So if you could check out their Instagram or their website, Mina Gallery, and the show's later this month. So they just posted all the flyers and everything. It's about 45 artists, you know, and we're gonna be showing all our work. A lot of the artists are all street artists and muralists.
Wow, awesome. So do check that out. Is that on the Mina Gallery website or Instagram?
Yeah,
Oh.
so it's Mina. It's 11 Mina Gallery, and it's in downtown San Francisco. And it's called, the show is Paint the Void. So that was the theme during the COVID. So we're all going to be in reception. So it's coming up at the end of the month.
Awesome.
Victor, I will get with Chris and make sure that's up on our website too after this.
Awesome. Great, fantastic. All right. So next Second Friday Art Talk will be in September. So that's Friday the 10th. Do let us know if you know somebody who's interested. I will be soliciting panelists, but if you know somebody who will be great and is open to the idea, please let us know. You could let ArtPush know through FridayArtWalk.com or just hit me up on Instagram, VICMAV. Quite easy to remember. Right? Are we ready to unlock the beast? Any other announcements from from the artists or the community? No? All right, okay, let's see.
I will just reiterate that call for art that you had mentioned earlier. There are a few days left, and it is filling up real quick. So I don't know, a lot of you probably saw the book we did last year, East Bay Artists 2020. It was a huge success. You know, we got 300 books out there. It puts the artist website right in there, and it gets you out in front of people. So we got the next one. Deadline to submit is in 3 days. Go to artpush.org for information. Oh, and actually, we just started pre-sales today too. So
Whoa.
if you go to artquarter.com, you can actually pre-order the book.
Wow. So it is moving pretty fast. And last time I checked, there were 88 spots taken already. So if you want to be part of this book, this will be the time to do it. And you won't regret it.
Yeah, the window's closing. You don't want to get your fingers caught in there because that can really sting.
Enough with the dad jokes.
All righty then. So I've been Victor, your host, and I'd like to thank Philm, Chris, and Mikey for being part of this panel. It was fantastic as usual. Thanks for opening up that it's okay to be you and not to engage. It's okay to give and beautify your community. And it's okay to be on a panel even though you're not feeling well. So with that being said, thank you so much. And please keep beautifying the community as you do and giving so much to those around you without asking for much back. It's truly, truly a blessing to be part of that community. And to the audience, we couldn't have done it without you. Please spread the word, especially to the younger generation, so that they see what life is about when you get older and you create. With that being said, I would like to say thank you all for such a wonderful evening and have a good night.